It's so weird that it does that.
Oh, I know. It's crazy. In this episode of the Common Sense Show, we interview Jim Adams. He's the owner of Catalyst Personal Training in St. Louis, Missouri. He's also the founder of the Masters of Fitness Business podcast, Fit University. This guy is a legend in the fitness industry. He has a lot to talk about. We talk about life. We talk about business. So stay tuned because it's going to be valuable insights from you. But first, I'm Micah Logan. This is the Common Sense Show. Welcome to Common Sense Conversations. And we have here with us a returning guest. I had him on the podcast before, but my technology at the time was not that great. So, but the podcast was awesome. People really liked that show. So got good feedback.
Oh, okay. Oh, good.
It's my brother from another mother, my Wakandan brother, Jim Adams. Jim is the owner and CEO of Catalyst Personal Training. He's the founder of Fit University, and he is the host of the very popular fitness business podcast, The Masters in Fitness Business, where he talks to individuals who have been in the fitness game for a long time, people who he feels like has mastered the craft of the fitness business, and people who support those businesses as well. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And don't forget the book. I always got to plug the book.
Plug the book, baby.
Yeah,
go ahead.
So go ahead.
Yeah, so Jim, he actually wrote a book called Masters in Fitness Business. Was I a little hurt that I was left out of that book? A little bit, but he was charged by the page, so I understand.
You'll be in the next book.
Oh, okay.
It'll be better. It'll be like Terminator 2, where the sequel's better than the original.
Right.
And
exactly.
That's where you'll find Micah Logan in that episode. But you described me, you introduced me as a legend in the fitness industry. I'm not sure I quite live up to that, but I do appreciate it.
But you are, man. You are. You have great reach right now with the podcast, and you have this unique ability to get people on your show that people would love to sit down with for like 5 minutes, but you tend to pull it off. So that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I've been pretty happy with it. Yeah.
So Jim, tell us what's going on with you. Ever since we last spoke, you launched Fit University. You had your book come out. Tell us why you decided to go into the knowledge business when it comes to like that, and then tell us a little bit about the book. Maybe you can start with the book, tell us what the book is about, and then kind of just lead into Fit University. What made you decide to launch a knowledge-based platform?
Well, I think I would have to start at the beginning in order because it's all kind of part of the same mission. When I opened up Catalyst, I had been a trainer for over 20 years when I opened up Catalyst. And so it was my first time as a business owner, and I was a good trainer. I had a good following. So I was able to open up with a pretty good stable of clients that followed me. But then I quickly realized, and then I met Thomas Plummer, and I quickly realized that I didn't know much about running a business. So I needed to become as good of a business person as I was a trainer. I still don't think I'm there. I think I'm still a better trainer than business person, but I'm working on it. I'm learning. But so I ran into Thomas Plummer, and then he started working with him. He helped me quite a bit. And then I ran in a Secret Trainer Society, which you're a member of also. Yep. And then Frank Nash, I was like, Frank, I would like to kind of sit down, because when you leave conferences, your head's just exploding with ideas, and
right.
I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. And then so I said, well, can I sit down with one of these guys for like an hour and pick their brain? And he's like, yeah, you can. I'm like, how can I do that? He said, start a podcast. I said, I don't know anything about a podcast. He said, so I'm like, okay. So then I started a podcast. And so that's why I did it. I did it, to scratch my own itch, to learn how to become a better fitness business owner, a fit pro. And then I quickly realized that I wasn't unique and I wasn't alone. So that became the theme of the podcast, is helping trainers make that transition to business ownership so that they can get what they deserve and kind of build the life that they want for themselves instead of just creating a job for themselves, trading time for money, but being able to scale it and actually run a business and have it create some freedom of choice in your life, and ability to support you and your loved ones, and for the time that you're training and beyond. So that was the whole, it still is the force behind the podcast. And then that is also the theme of the book. It's 20 of the best episodes of the podcast, but it's not a transcription of the podcast. It's woven in with stories and themes. And there's some real heavy hitters in there. There's Thomas Plummer, there's Rick Mayo, there's Frank Nash, there's Tim Lyons. We got Don Murphy, who owns a couple of big golds up in New York. So there's some, and it's some heavy hitters in the book, and it's meant to be read as a reference manual more so than a book, because no matter what stage you are in your business, there's a chapter that can help you. It's broken down to the greats, which are ones like Thomas Plummer and Rick Mayo and the like. And then you have subject matter experts. So you got a guy, Eric Russell, on membership sales. You got Lisa Kuntz on mindset. There's Jay Croft on, the power of demographics, of zeroing in on the demographics. And then we have multiple owners in there, people who own multiple locations. And then we have single location owners. So no matter what stage you're in your business, you can find a chapter in there that can help you grow through that phase and get to the next stage. So that's why we wrote the book. And then I created Fit University for the same reason. I wanted to have a place where you can go and learn about the business side of fitness. And so I sought out some of those same people who've been on the podcast, because I've gotten over 120 episodes now. So, I've spoken to well over 100 people who are successful in the fitness industry, yourself included. And so I wanted to have a central hub for that information. So anybody who's got educational courses, like we have membership sales mastery, mastering small group training, Rainmaker Mindset, which is also kind of a sales course. And then we also have Fitstagram, how to monetize your business through Instagram, by Justin Brown in there. And we have more courses coming all the time, but that's the idea behind the podcast, the book, and Fitness University. I'm just trying to help trainers do what they love, but get paid for it and build a business that they can have for the rest of their life and provide for them, provide for their loved ones, all of those things. So that's in short about the book.
Yeah. So it's funny because, I look at the fitness industry and I wonder if I've always wondered, maybe, if there's industries like the fitness industry out there where we are unified in our beliefs about why fitness is important. We're unified in our beliefs about what fitness does, but we're not unified in our beliefs about what constitutes, for instance, the best lower body exercise, right? What constitutes the best program device for a certain demographic. And I wonder if, and so a lot of it is, the answer is it depends, of course, because it's all dependent on the person. However, do you see the lack of uniformity in business models in certain things as a massive hole in the industry? And can you think of another industry that's like the fitness industry where it seems like there's these big holes, and if they were more unified in some ways, that they could come together and actually make more money? Because I believe in the fact that if we agreed on some things, we would end up making more money than less money. We're still a little too adversarial in the fitness industry, a little bit.
I agree with you 100%, which is another reason that I started the podcast and Fit University and the student union and all of those things, so that we can create a collaborative environment, because that way like Frank Nash says all the time, if we're all in boats and the water's rising, then we all rise together. So that's the idea. But yeah, there's that competitiveness in that kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Just competitive and not antagonistic, but definitely a competitive atmosphere. And I think some of that comes with ego, with some of the people in the fitness industry. Some fit pros have a big ego, and when they join their gym, when they create their gym, then they want everything to come through them, and then they become the bottleneck in their business. So I agree. I think collaboration can help a lot of fit pros, especially, and I think the people that need it most are the independent operators, because the big franchises, they have it down. They have their system, they have their mission, they have their structure, everything kind of laid out for you. But if you're an independent, a lot of times you're bootstrapping and just going by the seat of your pants. You don't really have a sales system or onboarding system for clients or for your staff or anything like that. And so those are the ones that really need the help, that really need to reach out and ask for the help. And I think it all starts with mindset, right? You have to get out of the trainer mindset and stop looking at it from the lens of a trainer and start looking at it through the lens of who you're trying to help, right? So, and I think that is huge when you make that shift, because as a trainer, you're thinking, oh, I got this super secret lunge or this super secret sauce, whatever it may be, that makes me unique. Really, how many variations of a lunge can you do? I mean, look at P90X, how many variations of a push-up in there? But when it comes right down to a push-up, right? It's just how you structure it. It's just the experience that you create around it, and everything else that's added onto it. Because I think trainers get stuck looking at it through a trainer's eyes. I think they'll look at like an F45 and they're like, oh, the programming's crap, it's not really good. There's no progression, there's no periodization, there's no consistency, there's nobody watching people's form. And that's how a trainer thinks. But the general public's like, oh, it's great. I went in there and they had loud music, they knew my name, it was a cool looking studio, and I got a great sweat, I'm sore, I had fun with the instructors, I had fun with the other people in the class. I'm definitely going back, because they focus on the experience. So I think that's what trainers need to do, is they need to shift their focus from looking at it from a training standpoint and start looking at it from their demographic, whoever that demographic. And I think that's where most trainers miss. That's the first step that they miss, is they don't choose a demographic. When you ask them who they're trying to help, they're saying everybody. And if you're helping everybody, you're helping nobody, right? So I think you have to pick a demographic that you want to go after, and then go after that demographic and start thinking about service delivery from their eyes. Because there's another thing that Rick Mail talks about, this is that only 20% of the population, and that may be up now, they may change, but it doesn't move much, has a gym membership. So there's a full 80% that don't work out. Right. And we as an industry haven't done a good job of penetrating that market. And I think part of that is that because we get incestuous. We get incestuous in our mastermind groups, when we sit down and talk about best practices, then we all start to share the same best practices. They become the common best practices of the mastermind group. And so I think it's the same with the fitness industry, is that we as trainers get caught up in like our own workouts, our own style, how, our own journey, through fitness, where's my body fat? How's my movement? Things like that. But we don't look at it through the eyes of that 80%. Yeah. What does the 80% need? Like if I'm 50 pounds overweight and haven't worked out ever in my life, I don't even know what clothes I would wear to work out, or like, how can I, go into the gym without embarrassing myself, right? things like that. Those are the types of hurdles that they have coming into the gym. So we need to look at how we deliver service, how we market, everything through the eyes of our demographic. So if you're trying to go into that 80%, then that's what you need to do, is start providing services and get your marketing together and your service delivery so that it's more appealing to that demographic, so that you can get more of them in the gym.
All right. So you said a lot here. So we got to just kind of break it up a little bit. So like one of the things I wanted to, I think employees in general have an issue with thinking globally as opposed to thinking myopically, right? Thinking about just what's happening in their sphere at this particular time. And so this kind of goes back to a point that I made with someone before, which is that not everybody was meant to be a business owner. And I think that there's this narrative right now that because we have the internet and YouTube and all these 20-year-olds with taking pictures in front of Ferraris and Lamborghinis, that anyone can be an entrepreneur. You hear them say it all the time. But do you believe that?
Believe
that anyone can be an entrepreneur, anyone can be a business owner?
No. I was talking to my girlfriend about this last night, in that everybody, there's no shortage of great ideas. Oh, I got a great idea. I'm going to turn this into a business. But you and I both know that when you start to do a business, then you got to come up with a business plan. You got to get numbers. You got to get structure. You got to, negotiate the lease. You got to buy the equipment. There's a lot. It gets hard, right? And people start telling you no. First you're around your friends and your buddy and your family. They're like, yeah, go for it. You could do it. Yeah. And then you get into the real world and you start, doing cold pitches to everybody about your idea or your concept or your gym. And they say, no. And a lot of people can't make it through that stage. When it gets hard, they quit. And so you have to be able to push through that and have enough faith and conviction in yourself to continue to follow your mission, right?
It's funny because you
make it happen.
It's funny because you can get anybody can have a grand opening and drive in like a bunch of sales one time. But to have a repeatable business for years, that is hard.
It's hard work because it just takes consistent daily effort. Managing employees is difficult. It's like raising children. It really is, because you constantly have to reinforce the values and the system so they don't erode. So yeah, not everybody is cut out. And there's a lot of uncertainty. I make the joke, and when I tell other business owners, they laugh. That sometimes you want to burn it down, and sometimes you love it. And that's usually before lunch, right?
Yeah.
So, on any given day, so it's, and the other joke that I tell people, no, start your own business. You can create your own hours, be your own boss, work when you want to, don't work when you don't want to. No, like when you get a business, that's your boss. Yeah. You are the boss. Like, Dan Henderson, who's come on the upcoming podcast, says you got to be willing to put your needs aside and place the needs of the business first when you're the owner. Because if there's anything that goes wrong in your business, it's your fault, because it's your business. Right?
It's funny because it's like how many nights have you been there mopping or sweeping, cleaning windows? Like, yeah, you could hire someone to do it, and I'm sure you have people who clean, but there's still these like kind of things that you don't anticipate that are going to happen in the course of operation of the business that require you to step in. And the dream of owning a business, it's funny because people think about the beginning and the end in two different ways. When they start the business and they're getting all their plans together, they only think about the beginning piece. But when they're dreaming about their business, they only think about the end. But once they're open, nobody ever thinks about the end.
Right.
It's a weird dichotomy, right? Like, so when you're dreaming about it, the end is I'm on a yacht with my, with my harem of women and my Ferrari and my landing pad. right? And then they get it open. It's like, I got to get this thing open. I got to get this open. They never think about where they're going to land. They just jump off the plane, and maybe they have a plan for the jumping, but they didn't map it out. So now they're landing in the forest, or they're landing in a cactus field, and it hurts.
And and like they're asking, how did I get here? Because there was no plan from the beginning. 100%. So, in business, I mean, don't get me wrong, business ownership is rewarding, but it's hard. And in getting back to your original question about entrepreneur, I personally think it's probably one of the most overused terms out there right now, because anybody can call themselves an entrepreneur, but what really, I mean, we would have to define what entrepreneur, is, just because you're a business owner doesn't mean you're an entrepreneur,
Right.
So, I mean, it has to be, like you said, a proven, market proven, repeatable formula where you have, and of course you're going to have some failures and some mistakes along the way, but those are what, take you from good to great if you're willing to, take the lessons from them. Right.
Yeah.
And so, because that's one of the questions on the podcast is, what's your most successful failure? Because you learn a lot from failure. But anyway, so I think it's important to shoot, I totally lost my train of thought.
No, it happens.
Because we were talking about entrepreneur. Okay, so
Right.
entrepreneur, I think it's important to say, I've been able to do this more than once and been successful more than once,
right,
in order to be an entrepreneur. So if I take that definition of entrepreneur and move it forward, then that thins the herd a little bit from people who are self-labeled entrepreneur. I mean, because I think that's mostly a self-label. I don't think that's a label that anybody kind of gives to you.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And I think you've done a really good job at trying to fill a massive hole in the fitness industry. Now it's becoming filled now because there's more podcasts that have come out. But there are podcasts out there right now where they only interview, like for instance, the big players in the game. Sometimes you just want to hear from the people who are the middle class in the industry, or the people who are just starting. And that's important, hearing those perspectives, because it really does help shape you, especially toward the beginning. Kind of someone on the journey almost gives you more insight than someone who's finished their journey in some ways, because you feel like they can relate to you. But I think what you've done by building like Fit University, for instance, someone can go in there and I would say in a field like fitness where business acumen is notoriously bad. I think that most people in service-based businesses or technical-based businesses where the skills of the business are highly valued and they don't put much emphasis on the business side, it would play as well, So I think it was smart for you to create something like this, because there's nothing out there really like this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the biggest thing, but I guess the biggest hurdle is you don't know what you don't know, right? So trying to educate fit pros on how to become, so it's a two-pronged issue. One is how to educate fit pros on how to become better at business, how to change that lens, like I was talking about earlier. And then it's also, who do you trust? Because there's so many people out there that have, as you said earlier, taken a weekend, sales course, and now we can get you 100 leads and they're posing in front of their Ferrari, and there's just a lot of charlatans out there. So it's tough to know who to trust, what information to trust, who's legit, who's not. And that's probably both of those are equally big hurdles to get people to realize, okay, I do need help. And like one of the biggest ones in the fitness industry, like you said, is with accounting and finances and tax planning and all of that stuff, because trainers are the antithesis of accountants.
Yeah,
for the most part, right?
Except for
the
counting
most part,
reps.
yeah, exactly. So you definitely need to ask for help and reach out, and you need to build the team, to especially to do things that you don't like doing or you suck at doing, like accounting and tax planning. And then you need them to help, hold you accountable to, the things that you want, to your goals. So I think it's really imperative. And then when you are able to build that team around you that takes those things off your plate, then you're able to focus on what you do well and shine at that.
Yeah. I always use this quote by Thomas Soule, which is that it takes an extraordinary amount of knowledge, or I think he said an immense amount of knowledge, to understand the extent of your own ignorance. And it's funny because it's true. And I had to go to seminars and conferences for years and read so many books and talk to so many people before I just got to the point where I realized how much I previously didn't know. Like, you think that you know the questions to ask, you have no idea until you educate yourself on what questions you have to know. You have to fill the void of knowledge that you have in this domain, in particular, fitness domain, when it comes to business, to understand what questions you should ask that could actually help you. So getting help is it's a multivariant problem, which includes asking for help, which includes accepting the help. So those are a couple of the variants in the multivariant problem. But the other variant is that you don't really know what questions to ask. How do I even get there? And that's the question that oftentimes people have, is how do I even get there? The reason why they're asking that is because they don't even know what they don't know. Like you said, so it requires an immense amount of knowledge. So the question is, where do you start to build the knowledge? You start from places like Fit University, like reading your book or listening to your podcast, to your point. It's going to at least give you the idea. And my point of saying all that is not to repeat what you just said, but yes, to also endorse it, but also to say that it gives you, the point is not to just carbon copy the knowledge from one person to the next person, because it may not work for you, your style, or your business or your area. The point is to give you enough information so that you can translate it into questions and to business strategy that work for you. Because without that knowledge, you're not even going to know fundamentally what, where you're looking for. I mean, you can implement lead generation, talk to Tim Lyons, right? But what happens if you don't have any other systems in place? Right? Now you could talk to me about systems in place and how to put an infrastructure. That's what I do. That's my specialty. But if you don't have the leads coming in, what points to systems, right? So but where do you start first? It's chicken or egg. You got to start formulating these thoughts. And of course, ultimately you have to start somewhere. And I'm sure in your podcast, you probably get a lot of this, talking to individuals, basically where they don't, it's not that they don't know where to start because they're stupid. They don't know where to start because they don't even have the institutional knowledge to point themselves in a direction.
Yeah. Like you said, they don't know what to ask or where to look. Yeah. I agree with you 100% on that one.
So where do you tell them to start if they're employees? How do you make that transition?
Well, if they're employees, my philosophy on that is that I don't want, like my trainers, I don't want them to worry about or focus on anything other than the client. So I make it really as simple as possible for them. I don't talk to them about sales or systems or anything else. I just talk to them about taking care of clients and creating the best client experience when they come in, because otherwise they, it's like, I use the analogy of, you're going to school and your dad's dropping you off at school. And it's like, well, son, I lost my job today and I don't know if we're going to be able to make the mortgage. We may be homeless. We may have to live with, grandma for a little bit. Now you go have a good day at school and you go learn a lot. And they're like, what? So if I dumped all of my shit on my trainers, they'd be like, well, maybe I need to look for a new job or something. You know what I mean? So I just want them to focus on their task, and then the other thing that, you said that I thought I really liked, and the thing that I noticed is that people in the training industry, trainers, and I was, yeah, I don't know that I was really guilty of this because I was always a training geek, but I was a little resistant when it came to business, is asking for help or seeking out a coach. And I always think it's so ironic because fitness trainers are in the business of coaching, and they typically don't have coaches to help them. So, and everybody that I've had on the podcast has had a coach, has had a mentor, because that's how you level up. There's levels to this thing, right? And that's how you level up. If you don't know, ask someone who does. So go out and find a coach, find a mentor, and use them and take their advice. And then that way they can point you, kind of like your parents, when you're growing up, they can point you in the right direction. Now, it's still up to you to find the knowledge, implement it, find the knowledge that you think will move the needle and implement it and all of that, but they can at least point you in the right direction. So that's where I would tell most people to start, is find a coach. For me, my first business coach, and still to this day, I use him, is Thomas Plummer. I went to his one-day business seminar, and he just blew my mind like Thomas Plummer usually does.
Yep.
And then I started using his ideas in my business because he knew more about business than me, and he wasn't shy about calling me on my shit. So, or telling me what I had to do. So that is the common thread. There's two common threads that everybody that I've had on the podcast who've been successful in the fitness industry, they get coaches and mentors when they use them, and they usually have some type of meditation routine,
right?
Where they can kind of start their own self-development. Because what I found, at least for me, when you own a business and you have employees, you have to be a leader. You have to be. I found that I was a terrible leader, because I was just thinking about myself and what I wanted. So I had to become a better leader. In order to become a better leader, I had to get introspective. I had to look at myself. Where are my shortcomings? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Do I want to bring those weaknesses up, or do I want to hand that off to somebody else to handle? What are my strengths? How do I best use those in the business? Things like that. And I'm terrible at doing that myself. So I need help with that too. So I need to kind of examine my role and my motivation and make sure that I'm looking out for my team and giving them everything that they need to be successful in the positions that I put them in, so that my business can be successful.
It's funny because I've been thinking about leadership for a long time because I wanted to establish what kind of leader I was. Now there's this whole thing, leadership academies, all this other stuff, as if everyone can, just like everyone can be business owners, everyone is not a leader, and that's nothing wrong with that. And then somebody would twist that narrative and say things like, well, everyone's a leader in their own way. No, not everyone's a leader. Maybe you can lead yourself, and some people can't even do that. But leadership is a skill set, and it's a trait. And it's like, what kind of leader do you want to be? It's funny because I've examined the different types of leadership, including there's one that's very popular. You hear this narrative now, servant leadership. And that's where the leader who's in charge he or she puts himself on the same level in terms of like with their employees or whatever. And they're not really out front. They're leading together. They kind of walk hand in hand, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff is cool. Kumbaya, a lot of public relations, I think, stuff there. But to me, I'm not a big fan of servant leadership. Leaders lead. Bedros Keuilian calls it being a fighter jet, right? Like you have to be out front, and leaders lead from the front, not from the rest of their crowd. And they can reach back and bring people up with them to their ranks, but they don't step back to lead. I've spent a tremendous amount of time thinking about this. I can't get over this like servant leadership thing. I'm like, and I know it's about serving others and stuff like that, But fundamentally, leaders, the best leaders already do that. They already have a mind to create strong bonds with their team, keep them together, but they lead from the front. They don't lead from the back.
Yeah, and well, Dan Henderson, and I hate to keep going back to him, but he just says a lot of stuff and he makes a lot of sense on the upcoming podcast. He said, "True leaders create leaders. Create lead. They don't try to hoard all the power for themselves. They create leaders and empower other people on their team to be leaders and to be superstars." And as far as leadership styles, I agree that there's different leadership styles. You can, lead from the front. Depending on the situation, and again, it depends. But I think the key to being an effective leader is awareness of myself and awareness of my employees, or if I'm talking about a certain employee. An example would be, and this had to be pointed out to me because I didn't see it. I would always, at one point I was the bottleneck, and I still tend to be sometimes. Not so much anymore. I've gotten a lot better with that, but tend to be the bottleneck in my business because I wanted everything to flow through me, right? And I was a tyrant and a bully. This is the way I want it, and this is my business, and I'm going to be here. I'm not going anywhere, so you better get on board. I found that I had a lot of turnover. People don't want to work for that type of leader. So, and then I found out that I try to put too much on my plate, and then stuff falls through the cracks. So if I have like a meeting with a trainer, and I say, "Oh, you know what, John, I'm sorry, I forgot I have this other meeting. I need to go here. I apologize. We can reschedule." For me, I'm thinking, okay, I'm busy because I'm trying to take care of everything. I have all these responsibilities. I'm trying to run the business. He'll understand that, I have a lot on my plate. But what he sees is, oh, okay, he blew me off for another meeting. So he must think his time is more important than mine. So he doesn't really value me as a member of the team, and so then that undermines my leadership. Yeah. It undermines the culture in my business. So little things like that I need to be aware of that truly affect how my business is run. And so that's what I mean by creating an awareness of yourself and the people around you, specifically the people on your team.
Yeah, Thomas Plummer has mentored a lot of us, and coached a lot of us. And I remember 2016, June 24th, 2016, I sat in the back of one of his lectures at the McCormick Center in Chicago, Illinois. And at that time, I was still kind of making my way. It's funny how fast things change for you in an industry and how you meet people and stuff like that. But there were 4 questions that he asked. I just posted this in the STS private group the other day, but I want to kind of share the questions and get your take on them. So the first question he asked, and it really helped me change my perspective on business and life, because it made me think outside the box. So the first question was, what will it have meant to be you? The second question is, when enough is enough, what did you get done? What did you accomplish in life, and whose life did you change? And then lastly, do you have a plan for the rest of your life?
Yes.
So I wanted to get your take on those 4 questions.
Well, for me, that all those questions can be answered. I'm just speaking for myself. All those questions be answered in my mission statement, and that is just to leave this place, leave this world better than I found it. Right. So that's my mission in life. So that's what I'm looking for. That's the kind of legacy that I'm looking to leave. Now, how do I do that? I guess that's my vision rather. And then the mission is, how do I do that? By helping educate trainers and clients so that they can improve the quality of their life, so they can get more out of their own lives, whether that be, my general manager or a trainer. I want to take care of them. I want to help them grow and develop so that they can carry that on. Clients, I want to get the message to them that it's It's not about sets and reps or macros. It's about your life and the quality of your life, and things that you can do and experience in the course of your life with your family, your friends, your children, your grandchildren, whoever it may be. So that's what I'm trying to do. So that's my legacy. So I guess that would probably answer all of those questions.
Yeah. It's the end game is something that most business owners don't talk about, and they don't talk about what happens after. What is the after? And, when we have individuals like yourself who are contributing to the narrative in the fitness business, in the fitness industry in particular, trying to put more knowledge out there, people like Rick and myself who have created concepts for people to buy into, where they can get the structure that they like, that fits for them and their investment and for their future of their family. People like Frank who talk about culture, and who talk about how to create an atmosphere that people want to patronize and they want to return to. All of us do different things, right? Some of us are slightly similar, but all of us do different things. But at the end of the day, I think that you have to answer those 4 questions in order to really nail down how you're working presently.
Yeah.
And do you feel like that is part of what is lacking when you have, for instance, like a trainer who's an employee want to go from that to a fitness business owner? Like, do they answer the question why? Well, like, so what's the point? So let's say you're making $80,000, $90,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 as a trainer at a club. Why take on the expense of ownership just to have your name on the door? Okay, you can just spend some of your money and buy a billboard if you want to, right? Like, why go into business ownership? Because this now changes the game. It's a completely different skill set. Michael Gerber said it best, that the fatal assumption in business is that just because you can do the technical work of the business does not automatically assume that you can create a business that people want to patronize, that you can run it.
Yeah. And like you said, and that's the skill set. That's the biggest thing. And so I think the good news is there are people out there that are doing it, right? That are making that transition, like yourself. I mean, when we first met, we were in 2 very different spots. You had the one location in downtown Boston, and the podcast was pretty young. My gym was pretty young, all of those things. And so then you sought out knowledge, right? Yep. So you sought out Thomas Plummer, you sought out Secret Trainer Society, where, we, met again and became friends. And now you've, gone from one small location to 2 locations to now franchise, so the amount of knowledge that you have now about running a business is immensely more than we first met. And we're just talking, what was that? When were you on? Maybe 3-4 years ago?
Yeah. But, and that's my point, like, not to cut you off, but just to say, like, so I started this journey in 2003. I had my first studio in 2005, but I had an education process, I'll say, between 2005 to 2000 and call it 17, right? And then along the way, I had been kind of learning and then creating systems and processes along the way, and missions and vision statements, and drawing out some of my goals for the future and everything. But all that time in between was gathering knowledge, talking to people and stuff like that, just to get to the point in 2021 where I could franchise something. It's not an overnight process.
Well, I tell people, you're a 10-year overnight success.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right, because that's what our overnight successes are. They usually take about 5 to 10 years, depending on the individual in the industry. Yeah.
Yeah. You're right about that. And it is amazing that people don't give it more thought than just a passing fancy. And I feel bad because people have wasted lots of money on businesses that failed and they could have just stayed put and made more money and invested it and made more money than they did.
Yeah. And like Frank Nass says it all the time, there's nothing wrong with being a trainer. If you just want to be a trainer, if you just want to be a trainer at a big box gym or at a studio and you're making good money and you're okay with it, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who don't make a living in this industry and wind up changing professions because they can't make a go at personal training. So if you're able to go make a go as a trainer, then do it. Follow your passion.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with you. So Jim, what will trainers learn if they subscribe to Fit University? Are there principles there? For instance, this podcast is about helping small business owners and across domains, right? Not just fitness business, although that's my primary domain. But are there lessons that can be learned from other domains if they go to your online portal, Fit University?
From other industries?
Yeah.
Well, right now, like Fit University just launched. When did it launch? Probably 2 months ago. And then we had to, like all businesses, I went in with a model, with an idea, and then I got punched in the face. So I had to change it up. So we had to go, we had to go back to the drawing board. We were trying to do a subscription model and just didn't work. And so now we're going to a single purchase model. But anyway, it's pretty young. So I want to focus on the basic. Business is business. There are certain principles in business that just have to be adhered no matter what, because there are just fundamentals, right? And so what I'm trying to do in Fitness University is take those fundamental skills, like systems, like sales training, like onboarding, both staff and clients, and marketing, and taking those fundamental things that you need to be successful in business and presenting them with the nuances of the fitness industry. Like for example, membership sales in the fitness industry is different than sales in other industries, because you have to overcome more deeper and more personalized objections, right? Than you do if you're buying a washer and dryer or a car.
Right.
Try and buying a gym membership, especially a personal trainer, kind of hits at, like you hinted at it earlier, at some deeper, things going on. So you have to be able to drill down to that and overcome those objections. So that's what I mean, that when that the fitness industry has specific issues that you have to address if you're going to be successful. But at the same time, you had to adhere to those business fundamentals with those small little tweaks. So as of right now, I don't have any other educational modules in there from other industries. That's not to say that I won't, because I know Rick Mayo is a big proponent of learning from other industries. And I think you can always do that. I mean,
me too. The black Rick Mayo is too.
Yeah, the black. That's right. But yeah, I think you can always learn from other industries. It's like, it's fresh eyes, right? It's new eyes. But the fundamentals are the fundamentals. Eventually I would like to have, like you touched on it earlier, starting point, because it can be overwhelming. I mean, that's the tagline for Fitness University. Business can be hard. Let's change that. So if you could have like a starting point, and also just a plan and a structure, syllabus, whatever you want to call it, to educate yourself, so you can prioritize certain fundamentals and start to build on those, so that you can create the business that you want.
Yeah. So, Jim, if I were to ask you to leave the podcast listeners and the watchers with one fundamental business principle, that running a business and gathering principles over time is what makes you successful. Not one principle will make you successful. But what would you say is the top lesson you've learned, the top business principle that you've learned that contributed heavily to your growth as a business owner?
Me personally, that is not about me. It's about my clients. It's about the members. It's about the staff, my team. And am I taking care of them and enhancing their lives? Am I solving a problem for them?
Right.
Or giving them some type of mission in life. So I would say that's the biggest thing, because I know when I first opened up business, it was all about me. I was going to be this big baller business owner, driving fancy cars, living in a big house, doing all this stuff. It was all about me. And I was just numbers, getting those, people in. And then it didn't work. It didn't resonate. People didn't want to pump Jim up. So again, through some of that self-examination work and, learning to become a better leader and learning some of the big business acumen, I learned that it's not about me. When I'm doing my marketing, I better be speaking to the demographic that I want. So we had to tweak our, and again, it's not about what I like. Well, perfect example is Fit University, right? Right. The demographic for the podcast is predominantly male. And I don't know if that's my podcast or podcasts in general, but it's usually 80-20 male to female. So based on that, I'm thinking the demographic for Fit University will be the same. And I don't know if that's industry wide or if that's just my podcast, but either way, my demographic is 80-20 men to women. So when I was designing my logo, I was like, oh, I'm going to make it this cool, classy, kind of high-end logo. And so I did. And then I showed it to my girlfriend. I was like, what do you think? She's like, oh, it's a great logo. She goes, is your demographic going to like it? And I was like, no, they're not. So then I had to go back to the drawing board and I had to start thinking through the eyes of who I wanted to benefit from Fit University and then design everything around that. So, I mean, that's a perfect example of, it's not about me. It's about who I'm trying to help, who I'm trying to solve problems for.
So Jim, where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Just look up Trainer Jim on the internet, but you can go to trainerjim.net. That's a page for the podcast. You can go to fituniversityonline.com. That's Fit University. And you can also go to catalyststl.com. And that is the training studio in St. Louis. Amazing.
Jim, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. Of course, I got to jet out now because other part of my duties is picking up my kids. So
yeah, I got you, man.
You're the man. You dropped some real gems. And if you are listening out there, Jim has talked to some of the most brilliant people that are in our domain that I know. And he really does spit some fire when he talks. So Jim, thank you for coming back again, brother.
I appreciate it, man. I'm just trying to be honest, trying to tell the truth. That's it.
I like it. We need a little of that today. Right.
We do. We do.
All right, Jim,
man.
We'll talk
it's always
soon,
good to see you, and hopefully we'll see each other in person soon.
I know. I hope
we're due for a gathering.
Get some mileage out of that STS payment that we pay every month. All right. Talk to you later.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Thanks, man.